I still remember the way the candles flickered against the crystal glasses that Christmas night 12 years ago, how the room smelled of roasted ham and cinnamon, how everyone seemed just a little too polite, a little too quiet when I entered. I told myself I was imagining it. Families get tense during the holidays. Stress, travel expectations, any of it could make people act strange. But the longer I sat at that long oak table, the more I felt like an intruder in my own home. Conversations died the moment I approached. My mother's smile was stretched too thin. My father kept clearing his throat, eyes sliding away from mine. Even the cousins who used to run into my arms wouldn't look at me. Then Lily stood up. Her chair scraped loudly across the floor. Everyone looked. She pressed a trembling hand to her chest, voice cracking just enough to seem sincere, and accused me of something so shocking, so vile, so surgically crafted to destroy me, that the room froze in place. Forks hovered half-raised. Someone gasped. My aunt whispered, "Oh my God," under her breath. I opened my mouth to defend myself, but Lily began to cry big, heaving sobs that sent my mother rushing to her side. My father slammed his hand on the table and pointed to the door. "Get out, Marion, before you ruin Christmas again." I walked into the snow without a coat, without dignity, without a family. As the door shut behind me, I understood I had been erased, and I promised myself I would never return. I didn't look back as I crossed the lawn boots sinking into fresh powder. The cold hit me in the face, sharp and merciless. But it was honesty compared to what waited inside that house. Warm silhouettes hovered behind frosted windows, comforting Lily, consoling her, believing her. Not one person followed me. Not one person asked for the truth. I drove away that night, headlights carving through a storm that matched the chaos inside me. For hours I replayed what had happened. How Lily's lips twitched before she cried. How my mother pulled her close like she'd been waiting for an excuse. How my father didn't hesitate, not even for a second, before choosing his favorite daughter. By dawn, I crossed state lines and swore I would never let the Hale family decide who I was again. 12 years later, I kept that promise. Mostly. Now I lived in Portland, in a quiet apartment on the 5th floor of a brick building overlooking the river. My mornings were predictable. A deliberate kind of calm. I brewed coffee, opened the blinds, listened to the hum of early traffic. My life was built with intention. No surprises, no drama, no expectations. The kind of life you create when you've spent your childhood drowning in someone else's chaos. I had rebuilt everything from the ground up. My career in logistics management wasn't glamorous, but it was stable, respected, something I earned by myself without a single favor from the people who threw me out into the snow. I'd climbed every rung by showing up early, working twice as hard, and refusing to repeat the mistakes of the family I came from. I didn't celebrate Christmas anymore. Every December, I volunteered for extra shifts or took solo trips to places where holiday music didn't follow you into grocery stores. I told friends I was not much of a holiday person, and they accepted it without probing. No one in Portland knew what happened that night. I had buried it deep enough that even I could pretend it belonged to someone else. But the past never stays buried. It waits. That afternoon, while sorting through work emails, I saw a message from a Denver law office. The subject line was simple, regarding your family estate. I stared at it, jaw tight, pulse rising. I hovered the cursor over the trash icon, delete, ignore, pretend. None of it existed, but something held me back. A pressure behind my ribs. A whisper of unease I hadn't felt in years. Before I could decide what to do, I heard the soft thump of mail being pushed through my apartment slot. When I retrieved it, one envelope stood out, no return address, Denver postmark. My hands went cold. Inside was a torn family photograph from that Christmas 12 years ago. The side with me in it was ripped away. On the back, in hurried handwriting, were 3 words: "You should come home." I sat on the couch, the photo trembling between my fingers, feeling the walls of the life I'd built tighten around me. After 12 years of silence, something, or someone wanted me back. Christmas was coming again, and I had no idea what was waiting on the other side of that note. For 12 years, silence had been my sanctuary. In Portland, no one knew the girl who had been thrown out into the snow. They only knew the woman who arrived early to meetings, solved problems before they existed, and walked with a steadiness I had built piece by piece. My mornings were a quiet ritual of survival that eventually became comfort coffee steaming on the counter, the river glowing faintly through my window, the hum of a city that didn't expect anything from me. Here I wasn't in Lily's shadow. I wasn't the Hale family scapegoat. I was just Marian, competent, reliable, unremarkably calm. And I liked it that way. My apartment was small but meticulously ordered, not because I was obsessive, but because chaos had been the wallpaper of my childhood. Lily's melodrama. My parents' constant firefighting on her behalf, the way every family gathering felt like stepping onto a stage, they all carved a need for predictability into me. In Portland, predictability became the first thing I allowed myself to want. Work helped too. Logistics may not have been glamorous, but it offered something precious: mastery. When shipments stalled, I unstuck them. When schedules fell apart, I built new ones. My team trusted me. My supervisors valued me. Over the years, I rose from warehouse coordinator to operations manager. A climb, no one handed me a climb I made without the family who once insisted I would fail without them. There was a time early on when I almost let someone sabotage that career. A supervisor who was stealing overtime hours from my team thought I'd stay quiet. When I reported him, it nearly cost me my job, but he was eventually fired. That day taught me something: I didn't have to stay small. I could stand up, speak, and watch the truth hold. It was the opposite of my childhood, where speaking truth only tightened the noose. After that, I moved to Portland for a fresh start. The distance made everything easier. Everything except December. Christmas had become a shadow, more memory than holiday, more wound than celebration. I built my life around avoiding it. I worked through the season, turned off the TV when holiday ads played, ignored the smell of peppermint in bakeries. I told myself I was healed because I didn't cry anymore. But healing and avoidance are not the same thing, and the envelope from Denver made that painfully clear. It sat on my coffee table like a loaded question. I tried to pretend it wasn't there, pouring myself into work emails, dinner prep, anything mundane enough to anchor me. But when my laptop chimed again, I flinched. Another message from the Denver law firm blinked in my inbox, same sender, same vague subject line. I clicked it open before I could talk myself out of it. Please confirm receipt. Pending matter requires your acknowledgement. No details, no explanation. Just a request that felt more like a summons. My stomach tightened. I had worked hard to build a life where the Hales didn't exist. Why were they reaching across 12 years of silence now? Before I could spiral, I shut the laptop and stood abruptly pacing my living room. I told myself it was a mix-up, a clerical error, someone else with the same last name. Anything but what I feared: that something from Colorado had found its way across state lines and into the quiet life I'd built. Then I remembered the unopened envelope on my table. I sat back down, picked it up, and forced my fingers to tear through the paper. The photograph fell into my lap first, my family dressed in deep reds and greens, smiling stiffly for a Christmas picture taken hours before my life imploded. The rip down the middle erased me entirely. The inked handwriting on the back whispered, "You should come home." Home. A word I hadn't used for that place in 12 years. I felt a familiar tightening in my chest, the same sensation I felt when I stood in the snow outside my parents' house with nowhere to go. The past wasn't drifting back gently, it was clawing its way into the present. Before I could make sense of it, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Colorado area code. My breath caught as it rang a second time. I didn't answer. I couldn't. I let it go to voicemail, but the buzzing didn't stop. A second notification appeared seconds later: new voicemail received. The last time I heard a voice from Colorado, it was my father ordering me out of his house. Now someone else wanted to talk to me. But I wasn't the same girl who walked into that storm 12 years ago. I wasn't powerless. Still, as I held the torn photo in one hand and stared at the voicemail notification lighting up my phone, I felt something shift inside me. The past had finally come calling, and this time I wasn't sure whether to run from it or face it. I pressed play with my thumb hovering just enough to retreat if I needed to. The message crackled, carrying the faint hum of wind, then a voice I hadn't heard since childhood. "Marion, it's Tom. You need to be careful. Things aren't what they seem back here." A pause, strained breathing, then a hurried whisper. "Just be careful." The recording ended abruptly, like someone had taken the phone from his hand. Tom. My uncle by marriage, not by blood. A quiet man who blended into the background at family gatherings. He was never cruel to me, never kind either. Just present. Just watching. Why would he be the first voice reaching out after 12 years of silence? The question lingered as I set the phone down, my pulse rising. I told myself not to overreact, not to let those 3 sentences unravel me, but that was the lie I always told myself when the past knocked. A memory flickered sharp, uninvited. The night after the Christmas accusation, while the house was buzzing with whispered arguments behind closed doors, I'd walked down the hall to grab my jacket. I heard Lily's voice first, soft and urgent. "Just trust me, okay? It'll work." Then, my mother's hissed reply. "She'll believe whatever we tell her." When I stepped closer, the voices cut off like scissors snapping shut. I thought it was about another teenage drama. Now, with Tom's warning echoing in my ears, the memory felt heavier, darker. Maybe they weren't talking about Lily at all. Maybe they were talking about me. I exhaled shakily and looked at the torn photograph again. It felt cruel the way they'd ripped me out so cleanly, like performing emotional surgery. My absence created a perfect composition. Parents smiling, Lily radiant at the center, the version of a family they always wished they had. But someone mailed that picture to me. Someone wanted me to see it. Someone wanted me to come home. But who? I pushed the thought aside and tilted the photo under the lamplight. Something faint, scratched into the back, caught my eye, indentations too shallow to be writing, but too deliberate to be random. I traced my thumb over the grooves, feeling letters without reading them. Someone wrote something there once, then erased it. Or someone wanted me to think so. I stood abruptly and paced the room. I needed answers, but I didn't want them from Colorado. I wanted them from someone who knew me, someone who had once seen something in me worth defending. Aunt Helen. Her name rose in my mind like a lighthouse. She had been the only one who ever treated me like I wasn't a burden. She warned me about trusting Lily long before I understood why. She went silent, not because she believed the lies, but because someone pressured her not to get involved. At least that was what I told myself to make sense of her sudden disappearance from my life. I thumbed through old contacts until I found her number. It felt foreign, long forgotten, but still there. Still waiting. I hovered for a second, then pressed call. 1 ring, 2. Voicemail. I hung up before the greeting finished. Maybe she changed numbers. Maybe she wouldn't answer even if she hadn't. 12 years of silence was its own language. I placed the phone down and tried to breathe through the tension twisting in my ribs. The law office email, the torn photograph, Tom's voicemail, they were too aligned to be meaningless. Someone was pushing me toward something, and someone else was trying to pull me away. A second buzz startled me. Another email from the law office. "We require confirmation before we proceed." The wording felt more urgent than before, more expectant. Why did they think I knew what this was about? Why did they think I was involved? I clicked my laptop open, searching the firm's name. Their website was polished professional. They specialized in estate disputes, inheritance complications, signature verification, fraud cases. My throat tightened. Fraud. I closed the laptop. I told myself I would not go down that road yet, not until I had more information. Not until I knew who was warning me and why. I walked to the window, watching dusk settle across Portland's streetlights, flickering to life. Nothing about this city ever felt threatening. Nothing about my life here ever hinted that something from my past could reach across states to find me. That safety had always been my illusion, one I needed to believe to survive. My phone buzzed again. Another Colorado number. I didn't answer. Instead, I waited for the voicemail alert. It came seconds later, a soft chime that cut through the quiet. This time, I didn't listen to it. I simply held the phone in my hand, feeling the weight of the message waiting inside it. Someone wanted me to hear the truth. Someone else didn't want me anywhere near it. The past was moving, shifting, rearranging itself with unsettling speed. For 12 years it slept. Now it was wide awake. And as I stared at the torn photograph lying on my coffee table, I knew something with absolute clarity: whatever had started all those years ago wasn't finished. The knock came just after 9, sharp enough to cut through the quiet of my apartment. I wasn't expecting anyone, and no one ever came by unannounced. For a moment I thought it was a neighbor, a delivery, anything ordinary. But when the knock came again, 3 firm raps that felt impatient, I felt a cold edge of dread slide beneath my ribs. I approached the door slowly, looking through the peephole. My heart dropped. Lily stood on the other side, wrapped in a winter coat too thin for the chill, a rolling suitcase at her side, her breath fogging in the hallway light. Her face lit up when she sensed movement behind the door, and she raised her hand in a small, eager wave. I had no idea how she found me. I hadn't spoken to her in 12 years. I hadn't spoken about her in 12 years. I opened the door only a few inches. "What are you doing here?" She beamed like we were sisters, reunited after a minor disagreement. Not a betrayal that tore my entire life apart. "Marion. Oh my God, it's really you. You look amazing." She leaned in, lowering her voice. "We're family, so I'm going to live with you." I stared at her, unable to speak for several seconds. She said it so casually, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. As if the last 12 years were a misunderstanding I owed her an apology for. "You can't be here," I managed. "How did you even—" "Oh, come on," she said, brushing past the question with a little laugh. "Mom said you'd say that, but you'll understand once we talk." I stepped outside, pulling the door closed behind me like a shield. "You can't stay here. Why are you in Portland?" She sighed dramatically, clutching her coat tighter. "Things got complicated back home. I'll explain later. I just need a place to land. Just for a little while." I shook my head. "No, that's not going to happen." Something cold flickered across her expression, gone almost before I could register it. "It's freezing out here, Marion, and the neighbors are staring." I glanced down the hall. A door had cracked open, someone peering curiously. Perfect. Social pressure, a classic Lily tactic. One night I said tightly, "That's all." Her smile returned instantly victorious. "I knew you wouldn't abandon me." I didn't answer. I stepped back inside, letting her drag the suitcase behind her. She immediately scanned my apartment, eyes darting across the shelves, the furniture, the pictures, taking in the life I'd built without her. "So, this is where you live," she said, voice thick with appraisal. "It's cute. Very organized." She said organized like it was a flaw. I crossed my arms. "Why are you here?" She walked to the kitchen counter and set her purse down like she owned the place. "I told you, I needed somewhere safe, somewhere family." She lowered her voice. "There's a lot happening with the estate." The word estate hit like a spark against dry brush. I kept my expression neutral. "What estate?" She waved a hand dismissively. "Oh, the lawyers are being dramatic. You know how these things go." Then she glanced at me with a careful smile. "They emailed you, didn't they?" My chest tightened. She shouldn't have known that. How would you know whether they did Oh, please. Everyone in Denver knows they're trying to track you down. It's not a big deal. It was a big deal. And she was studying my reaction like the outcome mattered to her. I didn't answer. Instead, I watched her roll her suitcase into the living room. She unzipped it, not revealing clothes, but stacks of folders wedged between sweaters. She caught me staring and quickly zipped it halfway shut again. You brought paperwork? I asked. What gnome but just stuff. Stuff. Sure. The tension in the air sharpened as she fumbled with her phone. It buzzed in her hand screen, lighting up with a number she didn't want me to see. She stepped into the bathroom and closed the door, lowering her voice, but not enough. I'm here. Yes, I got in. Don't call again tonight. It's risky. Risky. I moved closer to the door, hearing the shift in her tone. The performance dropping replaced with urgency. I said I'm in. Just give me time. My stomach nodded. When she emerged, she plastered on the same breezy smile. So, should we order dinner? I didn't answer. My attention caught on my welcome mat where an envelope just like the first now rested silently, as if placed there while I was dealing with Lily. I picked it up slowly. The same handwriting, the same Denver postmark. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a photocopy of a legal document, my name forged across the bottom, in a signature I recognized from the picture I'd seen earlier. But this copy was clearer, more confident, like whoever forged it knew my handwriting better than I remembered it myself. I turned toward the living room. Lily had frozen mid-step, eyes fixed on the document. She knew exactly what it was. And I finally knew one thing with absolute clarity: she hadn't come to Portland looking for family. She had come for my signature, or the chance to steal it again. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Lily standing in my kitchen with that strange, triumphant smile, as if she had walked into exactly the place she needed to be, as if I had been waiting for her all along. When dawn finally broke, I sat at the table with a mug of coffee gone cold, staring at the photocopied document for the 100th time. Lily was already awake. I heard her humming softly, moving around my kitchen like she lived there, like she'd lived there for years. When I stepped inside, she was stirring oatmeal on the stove, wearing one of my sweaters, as if she'd forgotten it wasn't hers. Good morning, she chirped. I made enough for both of us. I didn't trust myself to respond. I walked past her, opened the cabinet, and pretended to look for another mug so she couldn't see the tension in my jaw. She leaned against the counter. You didn't sleep, did you? You look intense. Intense. That was one word for it. Instead of answering, I walked into my office and closed the door, needing a barrier between us. I placed the photocopied document under bright light, studying it like it held the last piece of a puzzle. It was a property transfer, something tied to the Hale family estate. But the signature was mine. Except it wasn't. The slant, the loop of the R, the hesitation at the end of my last name, someone had practiced this. Someone had gotten better at it over time. Someone I shared a childhood with. I was still staring at the paper when I realized Lily had followed me. She lingered in the doorway, silent, watching me with a calmness that felt unnatural. What are you looking at? She asked casually. I held the document up. This. Why do I have a forged copy of my own signature? She didn't blink. You're overreacting. It's probably nothing. Old paperwork. Old paperwork doesn't end up anonymously on my doorstep. She shrugged, then shifted the conversation. Marion, I need you to trust me. Things are complicated. Complicated. The second time she'd used that word since arriving. It was the kind of word people chose when the truth was too tangled or too dangerous to say aloud. She crossed her arms, suddenly defensive. Look, maybe you should stop digging into things you don't understand. There it was, the first crack, the mask slipping. I steadied my voice. Who sent this to me, Lily? How would I know? She snapped, but the flicker in her eyes betrayed her. She grabbed her phone and stepped out onto the balcony, whispering urgently. I waited until the door clicked shut before moving to her suitcase. I didn't want to search it, but my instincts honed from years of growing up beside her told me I couldn't trust a single thing she said. I opened the case quietly. Clothes were stuffed into one side, but the other half was filled with folders. Organized, labeled, dated. A level of detail Lily had never possessed in her entire life. I pulled one out. My breath caught. Inside were bank statements bearing my maiden name, recent statements, applications with my information, letters addressed to me but never sent. A folder labeled only with a date from 12 years ago, the Christmas my life collapsed. Under that folder lay several envelopes marked Denver unopened yet clearly handled, often the corners fraying. And the worst, a typed letter drafted to a law office naming Lily as my authorized representative. She'd been impersonating me. Not once. Not twice. For years. I placed everything back exactly where I found it just seconds before her footsteps returned. I straightened up, schooling my face into neutrality. She stepped inside, cheeks flushed, eyes too alert. "Who were you talking to?" I asked. "No one," she said. She lied effortlessly. She always had. Later that afternoon, while she was showering, I examined the photocopy again. A dark stripe covered the witness name on the bottom. But under direct light, thin impressions of letters pushed through evidence of writing on the original document. I couldn't make out the name, but I saw an initial. A familiar one. Someone at home had signed off on the forgery. The shower turned off. I shoved the paper away just in time. Lily walked out in a towel, smiling vaguely. "You're being very intense today," she repeated. "I'm thinking," I said. "That's dangerous for you," she teased with a little laugh. She thought she was in control. She thought I was still the sister who once backed down, swallowed pain, agreed to peace at any cost. But something had shifted. Fear had followed me for 12 years, but not now. Now I felt clarity, the kind that comes after too many lies collide in the same room. By evening, I'd gathered every document into a locked drawer and photographed everything. I called the Denver law office from a private number and listened to the recorded greeting. They specialized in inheritance disputes, identity issues, fraudulent transfers. Hearing those words spoken like routine business made my skin prickle. Lily hovered near me all night, pretending not to watch my reactions. When I stepped into the hallway to take out the trash, I paused. A black sedan idled across the street. Engine running, lights off, a silhouette inside watching my building. I stood still, breath sharp in my throat. The car didn't move. It only waited. When I returned upstairs, Lily was sitting on the couch with her phone in hand. She looked up, eyes bright and unreadable. "Everything okay?" she asked. I nodded, though every nerve inside me screamed otherwise. But as I locked my door, I knew without question Lily hadn't come here to reconnect. She hadn't come to apologize. She had come to finish something that started 12 years ago. And whatever she was tangled in, I was already part of it now. The black sedan was gone by morning, but the feeling it left behind wasn't. I stood at my window, holding my coffee, staring at the empty curb, as if the car might reappear just because I expected it to. The tire tracks were still visible on the wet pavement, fresh, deliberate, as though someone had parked there for hours. Watching. Waiting. Lily breezed into the kitchen behind me, humming off key. She poured herself coffee using my favorite mug, the one I never let guests touch, as if she had lived here long enough to claim it. "You're up early," she said brightly. "I had things on my mind." She nodded sympathetically, but her eyes flicked toward my office door. She was waiting for me to break. She was waiting for me to ask questions she didn't want to answer. Instead, I went to my office, locked the door, and finally called the Denver law office. A paralegal answered on the second ring, her tone brisk. "This is Simmons and Vale. How can I help you?" "My name is Marion Hale," I said. "I received a message about a family estate." There was a pause, a long one, the kind that told me my name wasn't new to her. Yes, Ms. Hale, she said carefully. We've been trying to reach you. There's an active matter requiring your confirmation. What matter? She hesitated again. An inheritance dispute, a property transfer from approximately 12 years ago. 12 years. Of course. And she continued, a representative contacted us recently claiming to speak on your behalf. My grip tightened on the phone. I'm not authorized to disclose that without your confirmation, but... She lowered her voice. We have several documents on file bearing your signature. We need to verify whether they're legitimate. My pulse thudded. Please send me copies. We can't send originals, but we can schedule a review. In the meantime, I need to ask, did you sign any estate-related documents 12 years ago? Numb. Silence. Then, Ms. Hale. Someone else has been signing for you. The words hit like cold water. I thanked her, ended the call, and sat back in my chair until the walls steadied around me. Lily wasn't just manipulating me, she was impersonating me. And she wasn't doing it alone. When I stepped back into the kitchen, Lily was leaning against the counter, scrolling through her phone. She didn't look up. Did you sleep better? She asked. I lied. Yes. She finally lifted her gaze, studying me the way she used to study a teacher right before lying convincingly enough to get an extension on an assignment. You're acting weird today. Am I? She shrugged and wandered to the balcony with her phone pressed to her ear, whispering again. This time I didn't need to stand close to hear the urgency in her voice. I told you she's not backing down. No, she hasn't signed anything. Just stop calling me okay. It's too risky. The hairs on my arms rose. I went to her suitcase the second she closed the balcony door, and what I found chilled me more than anything so far. The folders inside weren't random. They were methodical, detailed. Color-coded tabs marked things like Marion documents, estate letters, accounts. She had been preparing for this. Preparing for me. Inside one folder were bank statements tied to an account I hadn't used in years, but transactions showed activity as recent as last month. Then a draft claiming I had given Lily power of attorney. Letters addressed to me but opened and never delivered. Notes tracking my work schedule, my habits, even my coffee order. My entire life had been mapped. I put everything back exactly as I found it seconds before Lily re-entered, her smile. Too wide, her energy too sweet. You're awfully quiet today, she mused. Just tired. Maybe you need a break from work. You always push too hard. She tilted her head. I know you think I don't notice things, but I do. She noticed everything because she'd been monitoring me. As the day stretched on, she hovered like a shadow. She opened my mail before I reached it, claiming she was just being helpful. She rearranged a kitchen drawer I had organized neatly, clearly searching for something. She asked pointed questions about my finances. Do you still bank with the same place? Do you still use your maiden name anywhere? I hid my reactions, but inside pieces were falling into place with terrifying clarity. At lunch, I told her casually I might be working late tomorrow. Her expression tightened too quickly. How late? Not sure. Maybe don't go, she said lightly. We should spend time together. I smiled at her, an expression that felt like barbed wire stretched thin. We'll see. That evening, she tried a different tactic. She made pasta-lit candles, played soft music. The whole scene was wrong, too cozy, too intentional. You know, she said, twirling noodles around her fork, we could fix everything if we worked together. You and me. Sisters. She waited for my answer like a trap waiting for weight. I didn't give her one. After dinner, I retreated to my office and called the Denver law office again. I didn't speak when the automated menu started. I just listened. Their specialties flashed through the recording, fraudulent signatures. Inheritance disputes. Identity misuse. Every word fit too perfectly with the papers hidden in Lily's suitcase. When I stepped outside later to take out the garbage, the cold night air steadied me until I saw it again. A black sedan. Not idling this time, but parked discreetly across the street. Lights off. Engine silent. a silhouette in the driver's seat, unmoving, watching. When I went back inside, Lily looked up from the couch phone in hand. "Everything okay?" she asked. I locked the door behind me. "Fine." But I knew then, with absolute certainty, she wasn't just in trouble. She was bringing it straight to my door. The anonymous text glowed on my screen long after I'd read it. "Do not let her sign anything. No name. No context. Just a warning sharp enough to cut straight through my nerves." I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at it, feeling the floor tilt slightly beneath me. Someone out there knew what Lily was doing. Someone out there cared enough to interfere. But who? My mind went immediately to Aunt Helen. The one person who had ever looked at me and seen more than the role my family assigned me. I hadn't spoken to her since the Christmas disaster. She'd disappeared from my life so completely, I assumed she had chosen them over me. But now she felt like the only person who might tell the truth. Before I could give myself time to reconsider, I scrolled through old contacts. There she was, still listed, still untouched by 12 years of silence. My breath hitched when the call rang once, twice, 3 times. When it went to voicemail, I closed my eyes, letting disappointment wash over me. Then my phone buzzed. Aunt Helen calling me back. Marion. Her voice sounded older, thinner, but unmistakably hers. I exhaled shakily. "Hi, Aunt Helen." A beat of stunned silence followed, then something I hadn't expected, relief. "Oh, thank God. I've been hoping you'd call." Her voice trembled as if she had been carrying this weight alone for years. "I got something in the mail," I said. "Something about the family estate. And Lily is here, in Portland." Another sharp inhale from her side. "She's with you?" "Yes." "Oh, Marion." Her tone shifted, fear not surprise. "Has she showed you any documents? Anything with your name on it?" "Yes," I whispered. Silence stretched thick as fog. Then her voice hardened. "You need to listen very carefully. None of what they told you 12 years ago was true." My skin prickled. "What do you mean?" "Your great-aunt Clara died that same winter. She left property and assets meant to be split between you and Lily. You were supposed to be notified, both of you." Helen paused, voice trembling. "They told the lawyers you refused your portion." My heart thudded painfully. I never even knew there was anything to refuse. "I know," she said softly. "I know, sweetheart. I confronted your parents when I found out, but they insisted you didn't want to be involved. They said you needed space. They said you didn't want anything from the family. That's a lie." "It is." Her voice cracked. "It always was." The room blurred for a second. My mind tried to catch up, but the truth came faster than I could absorb it. "They faked my refusal," I whispered. "Yes." I pressed a hand to my forehead, dizzy with a quiet, seething anger. "And Lily. She's been in contact with them for months. More than that, she's been working on this for years." Helen sounded sick. "And Marion. I saw something once. A document with your name on it. Signed. You weren't even in the state when it was dated. The forged signature. The photocopy. The envelopes." I swallowed hard. "Why didn't you say anything sooner?" Her answer broke something inside me. "I tried. I truly tried. But your parents, they made it clear I wasn't welcome in the conversation. I was told to stay out of Hale family affairs. And then I received a message from someone I don't know who telling me to keep quiet if I valued my safety." "You were threatened." "Yes." I pressed the phone tighter to my ear. "Aunt Helen, what's going on? Who's doing this?" "I don't know," she whispered. "But your parents protected Lily for so long they can't tell the difference between love and enabling anymore. They made decisions that should never have been theirs to make. And once Lily started drowning in debt, well, someone saw an opportunity. Someone, The property your great-aunt left is worth a small fortune now, enough to attract people who don't care about legality or family. My pulse quickened. Who witnessed the forged document? She hesitated. I don't know the full name, but check the copy you have. Look closely at the blacked-out signature. It's not who you think. The cryptic warning made the hairs on my arms stand up. Marian, she said gently, listen to me. You are not imagining this. You are not overreacting. You are in real danger. And Lily, whether she understands it or not, she is the one dragging the danger toward you. I pressed my eyes shut, steadying myself. What do I do? Get a lawyer. Document everything. And do not under any circumstances sign anything she puts in front of you. Tears prickled behind my eyes, not from fear, but from something I hadn't felt in a long time: validation. Someone believed me. Someone had always believed me. Thank you, I whispered. I'm here, she said quietly. I always was. And Marian, I'm proud of you for surviving what they did. The call ended, leaving a ringing silence in its wake. I looked around my apartment, the place I'd built with my own hands, the life I had carved out of trauma and grit, and felt a shift deep in my chest. For 12 years, I thought Lily ruined me with a lie. But now I understood she hadn't done it alone. And the people who helped her weren't finished yet. I didn't wait until morning to act. The moment I hung up with Aunt Helen, I sat down at my dining table and spread every document I had across the surface. Papers rustled under my trembling hands, the forged signature, the envelopes from Denver Lily's hidden folders. I photographed the bank statements tied to accounts I never opened. The evidence wasn't scattered anymore. It was forming a pattern designed to erase me. I built a timeline, scribbling dates and arrows on a legal pad. The Christmas accusation. The sudden disappearance of Aunt Helen. Great Aunt Clara's death. A forged refusal that stripped me of inheritance. Lily's visit now. The Denver law office emails. The anonymous warning. Every line pointed back to one thing: the estate. I opened my laptop and researched the property. What I found made my breath stop. It wasn't just a house. It was a historic commercial lot in a rapidly developing area worth a fortune someone wanted badly enough to commit fraud. I pressed the heels of my hands against my eyes. The betrayal wasn't an emotional wound anymore. It was financial, legal, premeditated. A soft rustling sound made me look up. Lily stood in the hallway watching me. Her smile was wrong, too controlled. You're up late? She said lightly. I'm thinking, I replied. She tilted her head. About what? The estate. Her expression didn't change, but her posture did. Her shoulders stiffened the way they always did when she sensed a threat she didn't understand. What about it? She asked. The lawyers reached out, I said. They want to talk. Both of us. Her eyes flashed with something like panic before the mask slid back into place. Oh, good. Yes, we should talk to them. I studied her in silence. She knew exactly who had emailed me. She knew exactly why. And she hadn't expected me to respond with clarity instead of confusion. Did they say who will be on the call? She asked too quickly. No, I said. But I'm sure you already know. The flicker in her eyes deepened. She forced a smile and backed away toward the bathroom, muttering something about washing her face. I waited until I heard the water running before grabbing my coat and stepping outside onto the balcony for air. A sticky note was stuck to my railing. Be careful who you let into your home. My chest tightened. Someone had been here. Someone close enough to touch my balcony door. Someone who wasn't Lily. I scanned the courtyard, but it was empty, silent, except for the hum of distant traffic. I peeled the note off slowly and folded it into my pocket. By the time I returned inside, Lily was wiping her face with a towel, pretending nothing unusual had happened. I made dinner earlier, she said sweetly. We should sit and eat. The table was set too neatly. 2 plates, 2 wine glasses. Like a stage she'd prepared. I sat across from her, watching how she studied my face between every bite. "You're quieter than usual," she said. "You tell me why," I replied. She blinked, thrown off. "You're hiding something," I continued. "And I'm done pretending I don't see it." The smile on her face faltered. "Marian, please stop acting like the enemy. Then stop treating me like a resource." Her eyes hardened for a fraction of a second before she looked down at her plate. The silence stretched so thin I could feel it vibrating in the air. "Look," she said finally, "lawyers make everything complicated. But this estate, if we work together, it could fix everything for both of us. I don't need fixing." "You might?" she said quietly, too quietly. The tone wasn't threatening. It was desperate. She changed tactics after dinner, trailing me around the apartment with forced affection, touching my arm lightly, offering to help with chores. It wasn't love. It was distraction. She wanted to know what I knew. I escaped to my office and shut the door, pressing my back against it as my heart steadied. When I checked my phone, there was already an email from a Portland attorney I'd contacted earlier. They could meet tomorrow. Finally, an anchor. I responded instantly and went to bed with the determination of someone preparing for war. The next morning at work, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. A dark car lingered by the entrance, same shape, same shade as the sedan I'd seen. I pretended not to notice, walking faster, keys clenched in my fist. When I returned to my car after lunch, a sticky note clung to the windshield. "Be careful, not a threat, a warning." From who? That afternoon, the attorney called with an opening. "I can see you today if you're available." "I'm available," I said. My voice didn't shake. I left work early, telling Lily by text. Her reply came instantly. "Oh, you're coming home sooner." "Great. I'll have dinner ready." She was watching my schedule too closely. She had always watched too closely. At the attorney's office, I laid out everything, every document, photograph, envelope. She listened, nodding slowly, expression growing darker with each page. "This isn't just civil," she said finally. "It's fraudulent transfer, identity misuse, potential conspiracy. Do not sign anything she gives you. Do not agree to anything verbally, and don't confront her alone again." I felt something open in my chest. Not fear, but clarity. When I returned home, Lily had reorganized my living room. Papers I had left stacked neatly were moved. A drawer containing old records was partially open. She looked at me from the couch with an innocent smile. "You're home early." I stepped inside, locking the door behind me. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Something had shifted. The game wasn't subtle now. And as she stood and asked how my day went, I realized she wasn't the only one operating under pressure. Whatever she was tangled in, whatever she had been promised or threatened with, it was unraveling. And I was finally ready to pull the rest of it apart. Lily stood in the hallway holding the folder I thought I had hidden well enough. She didn't smile, not fully, just a tight curve of her lips that looked more like a warning than anything resembling warmth. "You shouldn't go digging into things you don't understand," she said softly. I felt the ground shift under me, but I didn't give her the satisfaction of stepping back. "Give it to me." Her eyes narrowed, but she handed the folder over. Not because she respected me, because she was evaluating my reaction, recalculating her strategy. I walked straight to my office, closed the door, and opened the folder with steady hands. Everything I had photographed was there except for one sheet, the worst one, the document that tied my forged signature to a financial loan. In its place was a single clean page with 2 typed words, "Sign here." My stomach knotted, cold and heavy. I sat down, forcing my breaths to stay even. Lily didn't want me to find the forgery. She wanted to replace it with a real signature. She needed legitimacy, and she needed it fast. But who was she working for? I searched through the rest of the files, piecing together the timeline again. The disguised loan, the estate review, the forged refusal 12 years ago, The black sedan outside my building. Someone was pushing her. Someone stood to gain more than she did. Lily didn't plan. She reacted. Someone else was pulling strings. My laptop chimed with a new email. I opened it instinctively. Transaction alert activity on dormant account. I clicked through. A bank account under my maiden name, one I hadn't used since college, had been reactivated. Recent deposits, recent withdrawals, all signed electronically using a version of my old signature. Lily had been using my identity for months, maybe years. My throat tightened. I went back to the photocopied estate document from the envelope. The witness signature was blocked out in black ink, but under bright lamplight, faint impressions from the original page emerged an imprint of initials. Not Lily's, not mine. Someone who had been in that house 12 years ago. I reached for my phone and dialed the number tied to the initials. A voicemail picked up the message, trembling, almost panicked. I can't talk. I shouldn't be involved. Please stop calling. She promised no one would ever know. The message cut off before the name could be said. When I stepped back into the living room, the apartment was silent. Too silent. Lily sat rigidly on the couch, hands clasped tightly in her lap. Did something happen at work? She asked without looking up. Something like that. She lifted her eyes slowly. You're acting suspicious. Maybe because I'm living with someone who forged my name. The mask cracked, just a hairline fracture, but she covered it quickly with a scoff. You're being dramatic. Then explain why a law firm thinks we filed a joint petition. Her jaw tightened, shaking almost imperceptibly. Things got complicated. I told you. Complicated. Her favorite word. The word she used whenever she was caught doing something she didn't have the skill or courage to explain. That night she made dinner again, acting cheerful, as if the tension in the apartment wasn't coiling tighter with each breath. She talked about childhood memories, vacations, even Christmases, revising history with a softness she had never earned. I wasn't listening. I was studying her. After dinner, she followed me into the hallway. You're upset, she murmured. I can tell. I'm not signing anything I said. Her expression froze. I haven't asked you to, she whispered. Then why did you leave that paper in my folder? She smiled without humor. You think you know everything, Marion. You don't. And if you keep digging, you're going to hurt yourself more than you hurt me. She touched my shoulder, gently, affection layered over something much darker. I stepped back. I'm not the one who should be worried. For the first time since she arrived, fear flickered across her expression, real fear, raw and unmasked. But she recovered quickly, shoulders straightening, eyes hardening. We're sisters, she said softly. We're supposed to help each other. You didn't help me 12 years ago. That was different, she snapped. We were children. We were 16 and 18, old enough to know the difference between truth and a story you wanted people to believe. Silence stretched between us. She retreated to the guest room without another word, slamming the door behind her. I locked myself in my office and waited, pulse steadying as midnight crept closer. A new email popped into my inbox. Subject urgent. You need to see this immediately. I opened it. Attached was a scanned court filing from Colorado, a motion submitted that afternoon. Petition for full successor rights. Filed jointly. Lily Hale and Marion Hale. My breath stuttered. Someone had already signed my name. Not forged this time. Copied. Copied so perfectly it looked like mine. Like the signature I used in college. The signature I hadn't used in years. The signature Lily had practiced enough times to imitate without hesitation. My hand trembled as I closed the laptop. Whatever game Lily was playing, it wasn't improvisation. It was execution. And I was no longer a bystander. I was her liability. The digital signature glowed on my laptop screen long after I closed the document. Seeing my name attached to a filing I had never signed made something cold settle deep inside me. Fear wasn't the right word. Fear scattered your thoughts. This sharpened them. I forwarded the motion to my attorney with shaking hands. She responded in less than 5 minutes. "We need to escalate. This is no longer civil. This is criminal." I sat very still, letting the truth land. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't Lily being careless or dramatic. This was deliberate, coordinated practice. Someone had engineered this from the shadows, and Lily was the one carrying the knife. When I stepped out of my office, Lily was in the kitchen, wiping down the counters, humming like everything was normal. She turned when she heard me. "We need to talk about the estate," I said. Her smile flickered. "Oh, okay. Good. I'm glad you're finally taking this seriously." "They want to meet with both of us," I said carefully. "A conference call." Her mask slipped for half a second, something like panic quickly replaced with enthusiasm. Too enthusiastic. "Great. Did they say who will be on the call?" "No, I lied. But I'm sure they'll explain everything tomorrow." She nodded too quickly, too eagerly. "Perfect. Yes. We should definitely talk to them." She didn't know I had already set the trap. The next morning I prepared the dining table like it was a war room, documents arranged in neat stacks, laptop angled to capture the camera feed, a quiet recording app running in the background. My attorney joined the call from her office. The Denver firm dialed in next, an older attorney with a stern voice, the paralegal I had spoken to before. Lily arrived last, breathless and smiling, sitting directly beside me like we were a united front. "Good morning," she said brightly into the microphone. The attorneys did not respond to her cheerfulness. "We're here to discuss the petition filed jointly by Ms. Marion Hale and Ms. Lily Hale," the Denver attorney began. I let the words hang. "My client never signed any such petition," my attorney said firmly. Lily jerked slightly. "What?" "No, there must be some confusion." "There is no confusion," the Denver attorney replied. "The petition was submitted through your account, Ms. Lily. It included scanned signatures for both parties." Lily's fingers twisted together in her lap. "Well, yes, but I thought Mom said, look, this is just a misunderstanding. Marion is always so dramatic about paperwork." I didn't move. "I never signed anything." Her jaw tightened. "Well, maybe you forgot." The paralegal leaned forward on her camera. "We have metadata showing the document was edited and uploaded from your personal device, Ms. Lily." Lily's breath hitched. My attorney continued steady and razor-sharp. "We have evidence of identity abuse, forged signatures, and unauthorized filings." "This is a criminal matter," Lily blurted. "You don't understand. They told me it was fine." "Who is they?" I asked quietly. She froze. "Who told you to do this?" I repeated. Mom said you'd never find out." Lily spat, suddenly pointing at me like I had betrayed her. "She said you didn't want the estate. She said you refused it, remember? You didn't even care back then." The Denver attorney cleared his throat. "For the record, we have obtained the original estate files. We will now share the witness signature on the 2012 property transfer." The screen changed. It wasn't Lily's name beneath mine. It wasn't a stranger's. It was my father's. My breath caught sharp and involuntary. Lily's face crumpled. "He said it was for the best," she whispered. "They both did. They said you were unstable after Christmas. They said you didn't deserve it. They said you didn't even want to come home." My attorney's voice remained steady. "Ms. Lily, you need to understand that you just admitted to participating in fraudulent transfer and identity misuse." Lily began to unravel. "It wasn't supposed to go like this. I'm drowning in debt. I thought if I fixed the estate issue, I could pay everything back. They promised me it would be okay. They said we could structure it however we wanted. They said Marion wouldn't fight, she never fights." I looked at her, and for the first time, I didn't see a manipulative sister or a dramatic child. I saw someone who had been coddled into incompetence, used as a tool, and feared the consequences of her own choices. But that didn't make her innocent. The Denver attorney regained control of the meeting. "All filings will be suspended pending investigation. Any further attempts to act on behalf of Ms. Marion Hale will be considered legal interference." Lily slumped back in her chair, pale and trembling. The attorneys disconnected, leaving the room too quiet. Lily turned to me, eyes wild. "You ruined everything." "No," I said calmly. "I stopped you from ruining me." She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. She stormed away moments later, slamming the guest room door so hard a picture frame rattled off the wall. I stood alone in my kitchen, the echo still vibrating through the apartment, my pulse steadier than it had been in days. The truth was spoken aloud. And now came the part where every lie finally had a cost. Lily barely came out of the guest room after the conference call. When she did, it was only to whisper frantically into her phone, or shuffle to the kitchen in the early morning hours when she thought I was asleep. I heard pieces of her panic through the thin apartment walls. She knows I don't have the papers. What do I do now? Phrases that sent a cold pressure crawling across my spine. I wasn't afraid anymore, but I was done pretending this was just between sisters. The next afternoon, I met my attorney in person. She listened as I laid everything out, every forged document, every envelope, every strange note, every whispered phone call Lily had taken. She didn't interrupt. When I finished, she folded her hands calmly and said, "We need to initiate a full fraud report and freeze all estate activity. Your parents and your sister may face civil liability and possibly criminal charges." Hearing the words spoken aloud grounded me in a way nothing else had. I hadn't been dramatic. I hadn't been paranoid. I had been deceived. She added, "The estate office in Denver has scheduled a mandatory review. They want you there. They've also contacted your family." My stomach tightened, but I nodded. "I'll go." On the way home, my phone buzzed with another email from Denver. Attached were older estate documents, the ones I was never supposed to see. My hands shook as I scrolled through them. There was the alleged refusal form from 12 years ago, my forged signature curled neatly at the bottom. There was the transfer giving Lily temporary rights to the property until I could be reached for confirmation. And the worst two loan documents naming me as guarantor, forged in the same practiced handwriting. They had borrowed against the estate, against my name, my parents, Lily, together. I sat frozen on the sidewalk for nearly a minute, the city noise blurring around me. The betrayal wasn't just a wound anymore, it was a blueprint of intent. By the time I returned to my apartment, Lily was waiting in the hallway, her eyes rimmed red, her hands twisting a tissue into a shredded rope. "Can we talk?" she whispered. I didn't answer, but she followed me into the living room anyway. "I messed up," she said quietly. "I know I did, but I didn't have a choice." "You always have a choice," I said. "You just don't like the ones that require responsibility." She flinched as if I'd slapped her. "You don't understand. Mom said She said you'd handle this. She said you'd be the strong one." Of course she did. I'd been assigned the strong one role since childhood, strong enough to carry blame, to accept lies, to survive without the love they gave Lily freely. "Why didn't you just ask me for help?" I asked. She sank onto the couch, burying her face in her hands. "Because they said you wouldn't matter." The words hit harder than I expected. They said you'd never come back. They said you'd moved on. They said you didn't deserve any of it anyway. And then when everything got bad, when the debts started, her voice cracked. They said if I fixed the estate, everything would go back to normal. Normal. The version of normal that forced me out of a house in the middle of a snowstorm. "Who else is involved?" I asked. Her silence was telling. Her fear even more so. 2 days later, I flew to Denver. Walking into the estate office felt like stepping into the scene of a crime. A long conference table stretched across the room, lined with attorneys, paralegals, and investigators. My parents sat at one end. They both looked older, smaller somehow. My mother's hands trembled in her lap. My father stared at his folded fingers, unable to meet my eyes. Lily sat beside them, mascara smudged, her shoulders hunched. None of them spoke when I walked in. The lead attorney gestured for me to sit. "Ms. Hale, thank you for coming." Today we will review the legitimacy of the previous estate transfer and the filings submitted since. My mother immediately leaned forward. This is all a misunderstanding. Marion, is Mrs. Hale, the attorney, cut in sharply. Please wait until we ask for your statement. Her mouth shut with an audible click. They began laying out the documents one by one, each projected on a large screen. My forged refusal, the transfer naming Lily, the loans taken under my identity, the forged motions submitted in recent months. Ms. Marion, the attorney, said, "Did you sign any of these documents?" "No." "And were you aware of any financial transactions made under your name?" "No." He turned to my parents. "Mr. and Mrs. Hale, are you aware that your signatures appear as witnesses on multiple forged documents?" My father swallowed hard. We were told it was for the best." By whom? The attorney pressed. My mother finally spoke, her voice brittle. "We did what we had to. Lily wasn't capable of handling things alone. Marion had left. She abandoned us." "I was thrown out," I said quietly. She recoiled like the truth burned. My father broke next, his voice cracking. "We needed the money. The estate was the only thing of value left. The lender said they needed Marion's consent. We panicked. We thought she'd never come back. And when she did, the attorney asked." My mother's eyes darted to Lily. "We thought she'd sign eventually." The attorney nodded grimly and turned to Lily. "And you, Ms. Lily, do you acknowledge your role in these filings?" She burst into tears. "I didn't know what else to do. They said everything would collapse. They said I'd go to jail if we didn't fix it. They said—" Her voice faded into sobs. The attorney spoke quietly, decisively. "We will be freezing all estate activity immediately. Marion Hale will be reinstated as rightful heir pending further investigation. Your family may be held liable for damages." My parents didn't argue. They simply stared down at the table, defeated. When the meeting ended, they tried to follow me outside, voices soft and pleading. "Marion, please. Sweetheart, don't do this. Let us explain." I kept walking. But Lily lagged behind them. Her steps were slow, almost timid. She stopped a few feet from me, eyes glossy, hands trembling. "Is there any way back from this?" she whispered. I looked at her. Not the girl who cried on Christmas, not the woman who forged my name, but the sister shaped by the privilege of never facing consequences. "I don't know," I said honestly, "not to the past." Her shoulders crumpled. I turned away and stepped into the cold Denver air, letting it fill my lungs. My life no longer belonged to the people who tried to rewrite it. I had the truth now, and I finally had the power to decide what came next. The morning after the hearing felt strangely quiet, as if the entire city were holding its breath. I woke in my Denver hotel room before sunrise, the room washed in the soft blue of early winter light. For the first time in days, I didn't feel the immediate urge to check my phone or brace for another crisis. Instead, I sat at the small desk with a cup of hotel coffee and looked out at the skyline. 12 years ago, I left Colorado believing I was the problem. Now I knew I had been the excuse. I opened the folder beside me, the estate documents my attorney had handed over after the meeting. My name, clean and unaltered, now sat on the correct lines. The property that had been quietly stolen from me was legally mine again, and the people who orchestrated the lie would face consequences whether I chased them or not. I traced my finger over my restored signature. It wasn't joy I felt. It was something quieter, something steadier, a reclaiming. At 9 o'clock, I walked to my attorney's office to finalize next steps. She greeted me with a reassuring nod, then laid out the path ahead. "You now have full authority over the estate," she said. "Your parents and sister will face penalties regardless, but whether you want to pursue criminal charges is your decision." I thought I would feel triumphant. Instead, there was only a deep, humming clarity. "I won't block the investigation," I said, "but I'm not interested in revenge for revenge's sake." She smiled gently. "That's not weakness, Marion. That's control." After signing the last of the paperwork, I stepped outside into the cold sunlight. My family was waiting on the sidewalk, my mother twisting her gloves, my father staring at the ground, Lily standing slightly behind them like a ghost of the girl she once was. My mother took a hesitant step forward. "Marian, please, we never meant for it to go this far." I looked at her, really looked at her. For years I had craved an explanation, an apology, a reason. Now, hearing her speak, I realized that even if she meant every word, it changed nothing. "Intent doesn't erase impact," I said softly. My father swallowed hard. "We were desperate. You thought I was disposable. I finished for him. You made a choice. All of you did. And I lived with the consequences of that choice for 12 years. Lily stepped forward, her voice barely above a whisper. "Marian, I'm sorry." "I am. I didn't know how to fix any of it. I thought if I got ahead of the debt, if I handled the estate, maybe we could all be okay again." I believed she was sorry. But remorse wasn't the same as repair. "I hope you find a way to change," I told her honestly, "but you can't do it on my back anymore." Her face crumpled, but she didn't argue. Neither did my parents. They simply watched as I stepped into a rideshare and closed the door. On the flight back to Portland, I stared out the window as clouds drifted beneath the plane. The girl who had been shoved into the snow was gone. The woman sitting in her place had reclaimed everything she lost, not because the family deserved her forgiveness, but because she deserved her future. When I unlocked my apartment door that evening, the stillness felt different. Not lonely, not echoing with fear. Just mine. Entirely mine. I changed the locks the next morning, rearranged my living room, and donated the last remnants of the past that no longer belonged in my space. As I sorted through documents, I placed the torn family photo, the one sent anonymously, into a drawer, no longer a wound, but a reminder of a truth I had finally faced. Justice hadn't been the courtroom or the signatures or the legal freeze on the estate. Justice had been stepping back into my own life without carrying the weight of their lies. A week later, I stood in my living room with the final estate documents in hand. Colorado stamped, notarized, and undisputed. I placed them into a fireproof safe and closed it gently. The click of the latch sounded like a chapter closing. I poured tea, sat by the window, and watched the winter sunlight spill across the floor. For a long time, I simply breathed deeply, fully, without the heaviness I used to mistake for normal. My life was mine again. And if there was one thing I wished someone had told me 12 years ago, it would be this. You don't have to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. You are allowed to walk away. You are allowed to rebuild. You are allowed to choose yourself. If you've ever had to step away from people you love to protect the person you're becoming, I hope my story reminds you that you're not alone. Tell me in the comments what justice looks like to you. And if you want more stories where truth finally wins, make sure you stay with me and don't forget to subscribe.